Welcome Year 11 to this special assembly. I want to run through some of the assessment protocols that we'll have in place, what we understand and know about the alternatives to the exams that would have been sat for GCSE and also for A-level obviously this year, and how we'll proceed and work with you during this year to make sure that those things are the best they can be. So first of all, thank you to your teachers, and mostly thank you to you for the work you've been doing remotely. Your engagement in that, your feedback has been much appreciated. I know it's hard, it's not ideal, and we'll talk about that throughout, but you are making the very best of it, and that's so important. And we do recognise that, and we do thank you and your parents and carers for the support that they're giving you in working at home, for the majority of you at the moment. As we'll say throughout perhaps this presentation, it is, as we've said throughout this year, it is doing the very best we can under the circumstances and trying to work in the fairest way possible. It's not fair, no one can pretend that the only fair way for things to be would be that you were in school, that we were doing exams in the summer as planned and all of those things. So no one's saying that things are fair, they're saying that we have to do the things in the fairest way possible under the circumstances. We also know and are aware and are trying really hard to keep you balanced and giving you the information we can in a timely manner when we have that. We receive information in schools at the same time as it becomes available in the public domain. But what we will do is we'll keep you updated, and we'll try to allay any fears and make sure that we work together to do the very best we can for all of us to make sure that we get through and get the results that we need and for you to be successful as we get towards the summer. And that's it really. It is that essence of all of this assembly is about doing everything we can to make sure that you are as successful as you possibly can be. So what do we know? We know on the 4th of January, the Prime Minister announced that schools would be closed to the majority of students and that A-levels and GCSEs would not go ahead as planned. And then that was confirmed by Gavin Williamson, the Secretary of State for Education, 2 days later, to say that exams would not go ahead and that there would be a joint working group and consultation between the Department for Education and Ofqual, who manage all of the qualifications in England, to plan together for alternatives to those exams. The statement, he said, is we will trust in teachers, not algorithms, so that whatever process is put in place will not be a repeat of what took place last year in 2020, when algorithms or computers were used to moderate those grades that were submitted, and obviously that was then overturned later. So all of this is about making sure that those mistakes that were made last year are not repeated, and that we do, again, as I said earlier, do something that's the fairest we can do in the circumstances to reflect your ability and make sure that you get the grades that you deserve in the summer. So there has been, and it has just finished, a joint Department for Education and Ofqual consultation. So that's finished. We will have feedback from that sometime in March with next steps and next developments. What we are going to talk about in this assembly is what we're doing in the meantime to make sure that we're working hard and that we've got things in place for whatever that detail, whenever that detail emerges, that we're ready to respond to that. So what we do know from the consultation is that, you know, like all of us, the big thing is that you maintain focus and you maintain learning throughout this period of time. There is recognition that there's been disruption to your year 10, significant disruption, and for you as well, you know, disruption in year 11, and that on an individual basis, some of you missing more time than others, and that the system that's put in place should reflect that and should be able to respond to those individual issues and difficulties that barriers that you have faced. It will be teacher assessed grades, not centre assessed grades. They will be based on an assessment of a student's work. There will not be predictions from teachers, and that we will run right the way through until June, and that any assessment that is made of you will be done as late as possible, so that we can use that time for you to progress and to improve and to see that. So although there will be ongoing assessment, it will not end until the very end, if you like, of year 11 for you in school, which will be the end of May and into June. So what do we need to do? Well, we as a school need to provide that motivation and some certainty for you in year 11. The most important aspect is that you continue to learn and gain the knowledge and skills and understanding that you require for the next steps. Achieving grades is fantastic, and we want you to get the very best grades, but they have to be backed up by that knowledge. You have to be able to then go on to A-levels or whichever course you go on to, college, BTECs, whatever it may be, even employment. You will need that evidence base, and that you will need that knowledge base on which to progress and be successful. We need to provide you with feedback, as we would at any point, that formative feedback to say, yes, you could do this, but you need to work on this area. And that feedback's two ways, for you as students, and it's also for us as teachers, so that we know what we need to deliver and what we need to do to respond to make sure that you've got that knowledge, as I say, going forwards. We utilise spacing. We need to understand that individual contexts can be difficult at times, that people, as we say, have missed already different amounts of self-isolation, and that there will be different impacts even going forwards from this point. And so we need to respond to that by setting something out over a period of time to allow spacing, to allow opportunities for you to be able to be successful at points when, you know, things are as balanced and as normal as they can be under the current circumstances. We need a robust evidence base. We need to give you assessments and use assessments throughout to form those robust and rigorous assessments and use that for our teacher assessed grades. Under whatever format that takes, we need to make sure that we're doing the very best we can and have the best evidence to be able to make those judgments. And we need to do, as we say there, the very best for all of us in the circumstances we are facing. We recognise it's tough for you. We recognise it's tough for lots of people, including teachers, to be able to do what they want to do in a remote world at the moment. But at whatever point you return to school, we need to be ready and have things in place to make sure that we can get the very best out of each and every one of you before you leave Bradfield School. So how will we do this? I think lots of this has been shared already by teachers and by Mr Beard, who again I thank for the information he's already shared with you. So there'll be 3 assessment points or cycles, and you can see the approximate dates of those. Things may change, you know, if you return slightly before March, if it's slightly after that point, and we don't know. We know at the moment we're aiming for the 8th of March, but things can change. If you're back in school, that would be great. We could do that remote, that assessment too in school. And the 4th of May, again, when we have the findings of the consultation, we might change that window so that it's a bit later perhaps, to allow more time for you to show that improvement. So there'll be 3 assessment points. We'll use single papers, so rather than throwing multiple papers at you at this point, initially we'll set single papers. The first one will be remote, and I'll talk about that detail in a further slide. We will still allow full access arrangements. Anyone who needs readers, scribe, extra time, all of those things will still be facilitated. We'll report back to you a percentage score and the average for that paper, school average. We won't be grading individual pieces of work. That wouldn't be fair. What we will do, and we'll go throughout this period of time, is we'll use all the assessments we can to form the best judgment. So we don't want to give particular pressure or a real focus on one particular assessment. The most important is you do the very best you can, and that you get that feedback, and that allows you to then move forward. If we do need to use that assessment as any process, We'll be upfront about that. We may need to do that, and so it's important that you recognise that and do the very best you can throughout. As we say there, then the feedback for you in the next stages, and for us, what do we need to revisit? What do we need to make sure we cover to make sure that you have that knowledge to be successful going forwards? We're also going to start that cycle on a Wednesday, which will mean that rather than doing Monday to Friday, it will give the weekend, the middle weekend, just to help with that mental health and well-being for students, that they can spread out that revision a little bit more and have that gap in between those, just to support you and try to make that process as easy and as manageable as it can be. So an obvious question will be raised about malpractice, cheating. Well, if I'm at home and I'm doing it remotely, how will you know that I'm not cheating? What if I have got my answers ready? What if I guess what is on that assessment? All of those things will be difficult to do, to guess, but there is no way under the current circumstances that we can't stop someone potentially cheating. Now, what that may mean is, and again, I talk to you, I have to go through worst case scenario. I do not believe at Bradfield School this will be a big issue, but let's say that there was someone else going to sit the exam, an older sibling, whatever that might be, then we have to put things in place to be aware of that, to make sure. So the malpractice statement says that your teachers will be marking and moderating your work. Where school judges that there has been malpractice, the student's work may be marked null and void. If we mark it, we won't count it as a 0 and put that into any further calculation. We would just count that assessment as not being there, null and void, not counting in any judgment we make. Concerns would be raised, for instance, if a student's marks were significantly out of line with their historic performance. School will investigate cases of suspected malpractice, and students may have to undergo a discussion with their teachers or a member of senior leadership team, where we'll be questioning you, to elicit that information and make sure that we are giving you credit if that performance is something that's been managed by that student. Make sure that we are able to then award that mark. But if there is any suspicion, that's the process that we will have in place. As it says there, by uploading assessment, students will be making a declaration that their work has been completed without any external assistance, that that's their own work and that they've done it in that time. Assessments will be timed. There will be an upload time, which will mean that there will not be the opportunity for malpractice to take longer than allowed, because the window will shut and it will not allow submission of work beyond that time. So lastly from me, you will receive shortly those broad topic areas, not specific questions, but what topic areas may be covered in this first assessment cycle. You will only ever be assessed on work that's already been covered, and at this point we'll give you some guidance on what those areas will be. Teachers will run through Microsoft assignments. I know many of you have been using that as part of Microsoft Teams, but they'll run through that and make sure that you're aware of how to upload work, how to download those papers, and that we've had that practice so that we can do that successfully during the assessment cycle. You'll then complete those assessments. We will be able to mark, give you your score, and give you that feedback. Really important then, the most important thing is that you use that then, and we use that for next steps in learning. All questions and queries relating to the grading or assessment procedures need to come to that central point, exams@bradfield.sheffield.school.uk. If you have specific questions about a topic area, a subject assessment, that's fine. But anything which is those bigger questions that you or parents and carers may have about that general grading process, they need to be answered centrally through that email contact point. The last thing, maintain that good work. As I said at the start, we thank you, we recognise the great engagement, the work that you're doing. You need to understand that you can still make a difference to the learning, to the progress and to the grades that you achieve this year you can still make that difference, and so can we. So we need to still work together right the way through until you leave us at Bradfield School being the very best you can be and the most successful you can be, before you leave us to go on and obviously then repeat that success wherever that is in your next steps of learning, education, or work. So please keep listening to the updates. Please keep working with us, feeding back to teachers, feeding back to school, and we'll work together to get the very best outcomes. Thank you for listening. Bye bye.